Hello there, my name is Albert Swanson. I'm a SARC at Naval Air Station, Lemoore, California. So over the course of the next two videos, I'm going to talk about that initial interaction between a victim advocate and a victim of sexual assault. I'm going to just cover some key points that as advocates we want to make sure we're bringing up with the victims we're supporting. And I'm going to kind of break these down into 4 stages, this entire interaction. And the 4 stages I'm going to break it down into is that initial introduction, the rapport building section here, and providing resources and information, and finally closing. And so first we're going to talk a little bit about the introduction. Alright, so in that introduction we want to make sure that we are not just introducing ourselves but also explaining what our role is. We're the person we're supporting. You know, we're there to listen to them, we're there to support them any way we can. To educate them on the process, just to kind of to clear up a lot of the confusion, hopefully take away some of that stress, alleviate that, and to just kind of connect them with any resources and support that we can provide them. And now when you're introducing yourself, before you're doing that and explaining your role, make sure that you're introducing yourself by first name. So we want to be casual with the victims that we're working with, in that we want them to be able to get comfortable with us. You know, so if you're a high-ranking individual, maybe the victim you're working with is an E1 to E3, they might not be super comfortable with you showing up in your uniform and, you know, hey, I'm Lieutenant this, I'm Chief this. So it might be better for you to just introduce yourself by your name. Now, there will be times on deployment, or if the victim reports to you in the command, where it's impossible to get around that uniform and that rank. It's going to be there. You can still alleviate that, and there's still ways that you can work around that. But when all possible, try and show up in civilian clothes, try and use first name basis. Remember, civilian clothes, you really want to be in kind of a business casual. You still want to be appropriately dressed, even though you're not in uniform. You don't want to make them uncomfortable by your dress either. And so right there in the beginning, after we've kind of explained our role, we've introduced ourselves as a SAPR victim advocate or unit victim advocate, we also want to make sure that we're talking about confidentiality. Right? So confidentiality is really important right there in the beginning. If you explain confidentiality and the exceptions to that right from the beginning, it will make the client more comfortable to open up to you throughout this process, because they'll know that the things they're telling you are going to stay between the two of you, and they'll know what kinds of things, if they were to tell you, would be something you'd have to report, such as serious safety risks. And so another key thing we want to mention right in the beginning, along with confidentiality, we want to talk about the program is voluntary. So we want to make sure that they weren't forced to come talk to us, that, you know, they weren't sent over here automatically without, you know, asked whether or not they wanted our services. We want to make sure they know that speaking to a victim advocate and SAPR services are voluntary, as is anything in this process. Whether they talk to the command or law enforcement, that is all voluntary, and they don't have to do any of that. And if they know that, they can make that decision for themselves and be empowered, and then that'll make them more comfortable as well. And then so finally in this introduction here, we want to make sure that we're ruling out any immediate safety concerns. So hopefully when you first interacted or first saw the victim, you would have been able to see if there was any immediate injuries, bleeding, things like that present. But if you haven't gathered any of that yet, you want to ask them, you know, is there any immediate safety concerns or injuries you have that we should take care of, we should address before we go any further? You know, if they need emergency medical services, things like that, we should know that in the beginning so that we can get them that stuff before we start talking about, you know, our resources and all that. In this rapport building phase, this is now where you're asking them a little bit more questions, you know, about them and maybe their work situation, things like that, so you can get a better idea of how you can support them. So some kinds of things you might be asking them about, you know, maybe what is their support system in life look like? Do they have friends in the area that can support them, that they trust? Do they have any family that they feel like they can go to and talk to? Are they already seeing a counselor or some kind of other provider that could help them through this? You know, how long have they been in the area? Are they new to the area and maybe aren't very familiar with the services and the system here already? You know, what's their situation like with their command? Do they like their leadership? Do they already have some issues with their leadership? Because that'll be relevant down the road. You know, when you're talking about restricted and unrestricted, they're much less likely to make an unrestricted report if they tell you that they don't trust their leadership, you know, even before the assault. So knowing how they feel and the comfort in their command is good to know. How are they getting along in their work center? You know, what shift are they on, right? If they're on a night shift, that might be relevant to know down the road when you're talking about referrals. You want to make sure you give them a referral that they can actually make on their schedule and that'd be somewhat convenient for them. So this is also a good section for you to just listen to them, and so let them kind of take the lead here. See, you know, if some clients you work with are much more talkative, some are not, and some you'll have to ask a couple more questions to, you know, but if they're really talkative and they're just kind of, you know, laying it on you here, just let them talk, let them vent, you know, reflect back to them some of what you're hearing, you know, some of their emotions. So I think what I heard you say is this is something that, you know, really frustrated you, and, you know, you have every right to feel frustrated given what you've been through. And I think I also heard that this is one of your primary concerns, and that's something you'd like to talk about first. So maybe we should talk about that now. You know, so this is a good chance for you to kind of to vibe off what they're saying, reflect back, make sure you're both on the same page. You know, some of this stuff they might go there on their own anyways, and you might not even have to ask them. So this is a good chance for you to really listen to them, really attentive listening here, and you know, we don't want to be taking any notes, anything like that. We really just want to be focusing on our client here and just listening to their concerns. And so that's really what the rapport building phase is all about. You know, identifying their current situation. You know, that their what kind of command they have, what kind of support system they have, what are their major concerns that you can help them with. And then that kind of leads us into our third stage here, the providing resources and information stage that we're going to talk about in the next video.